Part 2 students. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to type in inequalities into your grapher and then graph them, okay? And then we're going to look at how to use a grapher or a graphing calculator to find the intersection point of two lines, okay? Now, here's the first thing you need to do with your graphers, okay? I want you to take your calculator and you're going to want to go to your, obviously turn your calculator on. Hopefully you know how to do that. Alright, now, if you will, push your y equals button right here and make sure you delete any equations that are in these different blanks right here. And by the way, if you'll scroll down, there's more. I believe your calculator holds up to 10 if I remember correctly, okay? So you'll want to scroll down and make sure you delete everything, okay? Alright, after you've done that, then next you're going to want to do this. We're going to type into our calculators a couple of different inequalities, okay? And when we graph them, they're going to actually do the calculator's going to do the shading for us. It's pretty cool. So the first thing you have to do is get your calculator in the inequality mode. Now, I'm using my old TI-83. My sons have my nicer TI-84s, okay? But either way, the direction should be very similar. Maybe not exact, but I think they'll be good enough to where you can figure out what to do. So what you want to do next is you want to go to your apps button. Now your apps button is right here. APPS, you want to push that button. Now my nice TI-84s have pages of apps, tons. My black TI-83 right here, not so much, okay? It's got like these options here. But I don't care if you have a lot of apps or very few apps. You have to scroll down. Usually your apps should be listed in alphabetical order. So you want to find the I's on your apps and you're looking for inequal right here. That's short for inequality, okay? So on my calculator, I hit the number 4 or I scroll down until this is highlighted and hit enter, okay? Now on my calculator, once I hit enter on that, this is what popped up. Yours very well could say something different. Mine said this. It says, press any key to continue, or press any key. Now yours might say yes or no. Whenever you have to push the key that gets you into inequality mode. Now after you've done that, wait for me, don't go on, okay? So after you've done that, your screen next should have said something like this. Now this is an older calculator, so it might be a little different, okay? This screen automatically popped up on my calculator. Now if yours didn't, maybe your screen went totally blank, that's okay. If you're not on this screen here, hit Y equals. And when you hit Y equals, something like this should pop up. If it doesn't, you're going to have to try those steps again or contact me, okay? And I'll try to set up a time where I sit down and help you figure out your calculator, alright? Okay? Now, this is up, okay? In fact, if I could make this the size of your screen here, right there's what it should say, okay? Right there, a little smaller maybe. Fits right in there, okay? Now, in a second, or in a little bit here, I'm going to show you how to access these different inequalities, okay? And equal signs. But for now, your screen on your calculator should look something like this. So here's what we're going to do next. We're going to enter our first inequality. Alright, so here we go. The inequality I'd like you to enter is this. Now, first of all, do not worry about making this right here. Actually, I shouldn't have done that. I need that back up here again. There it is. Okay, I'm gonna put that over here. We're gonna need that again in a second. Okay, now, I want you to simply, if your cursor's on the equal sign, move it over to the right so that it's not on top of the equal sign and type in 2x minus 3. Okay? Now once you've typed that in, the inequality I wanted you to use was this. less than or equal to 2x minus 3. I'm using my mouse here. 2x minus 3. So you've got the 2x minus 3 entered, okay? What you don't have is this inequality. So let me show you what you do next, okay? Watch this carefully, please. Move your cursor over so that it is on top of the equal sign. Got it? Now, next, how do you access? You want to use this right here. You want less than or equal to. How do you access that and put that up here? Well, once again, make sure your cursor or your blinking box is on your equal sign right here. Now, next, here's what you do. I'm going to show you with the screen here. If you'll look carefully, these arrows somewhat, not entirely, but somewhat line up with these buttons right here. Like the equal sign is a little bit above the Y. This is above window. This is above zoom. This is above trace. And this is above graph. Well, if you want this one right here, which you do, make sure your cursor's on the equal sign. Then you hit alpha and then zoom. Alpha means go way up here, and zoom, of course, is the button you want because this inequality is right above it. So alpha, zoom, and then you should have your inequality right there. Okay? Now next, you want to type in another inequality. Okay? So here it is. You want to type into your inequality y is less than 5. We already have y, okay? We already have that. So now it's going to be less than 5. So move your cursor over to the right here and type in 5. Then put your cursor back on the equal sign and notice you want less than. So here's less than right here. So make sure your cursor's on the equal sign and then hit alpha and then window. And this less than sign should pop up right here on the equal sign. So far, so good. Now there's one more I'd like to give you, okay? One more. Students, I want you to type this in next. It's 0.5x plus y equals 4. Now, do you see what I've done to you here? That's a 4 right here. What I've done is I've not given you the inequality, not equals, sorry. I want it to be, let me look at what I have here real quick. I want it to be less than, okay? So I want this right here to be less than, alright? So 0.5x plus y is less than 4. Now, look what I've done. You cannot enter that into your grapher until you get y by itself, okay? So the first thing you need to do is get y by itself, then you can enter it into the grapher. So bring your 0.5 over and make it negative. So y is less than negative 0.5x plus 4. You can never enter an equation or inequality into your grapher until you have first isolated the y. Okay, so now that it's isolated on your own, I would like you to go ahead and put this into your grapher. If you can do that, please put it in. And I definitely don't want that, and I apologize to you. Go ahead and put this thing in. Right up here. Wow. To line number 3. Alright, line number 3 right there. Okay. So, first of all, you're going to want to make sure that you're going to want to make sure you have your inequality here less than. So once again, you're going to make sure your cursor's on the equal sign, then hit alpha and then zoom or window, and then scroll to the right and type in negative 0.5x plus 4. So it should look like this. There are your 3 inequalities entered. Okay. Now at this point in time, you're ready to push. Don't do it though. Just listen. You're ready to push graph, but don't do it yet. Once you push graph, your grapher is going to graph all three of those, okay? It's going to look like this first, okay? And then it's going to look like this. It's going to graph the next line, so it'll look like this. And actually, well, you'll see, don't push graph yet, but you'll see when you do. You'll see this first. It's graphing the first inequality and shading for you. Then you do not need to push graph again. You just push graph once. It does all this for you. Then when it's done graphing this stuff here to the right, then it'll graph the second inequality, which is y is less than 5. Notice the dotted line going through 5 on the y-axis, shading downward. So far the area they agree is right in here. That's where you have the double shading right there. That's where the two shading areas intersect. Now, after that's done graphing, again, you don't have to push anything. It does all this for you. The next thing that should come up on your screen is this right here. Okay, more shading should take place, and now you can see where your shaded area is, where they all agree. It's kind of hard to see, but it's where all of the shading is. Right in here is the darkest part, okay? So it goes up to here, and then it looks like it comes down over here. So here's your shading part right in here. That's the darkest part. That's where all three shadings agree. Now, I'm not saying it's super easy to do or even necessary. What I am saying is you need to know how to do stuff like this, okay? So there's your answer. It graphed for you the three inequalities. It's a pretty good way to check your answer on a test or a quiz. Okay, alright, moving on. So that's how you enter inequality. Enter inequalities. Now, I'm sorry, I need to show you how to get out of this. Okay, so if you're done with your inequality mode, you go back to your, I'm glad I remember this, you go back to your apps, push apps, scroll down to inequalities, hit enter, and it should say, do you want to quit or not? Now it might say press any key, it might say, do you want to exit out of inequality mode, whatever. Make sure you push the appropriate button that allows you to access out of the inequality mode, and then your calculator's back to normal, okay? Alright, I hope that helps. Now, the second thing I want to teach you how to do is to find out how lines intersect, okay? So now you should be back in the regular non-inequality mode. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to enter an equation into your calculator. Y equals negative 3x plus 2. Please enter that into your calculator. Y equals negative 3x plus 2. Okay, now I want to give you another equation I want you to type into your calculator. Type this into your calculator, please. Y equals 2x minus 5. Y equals 2x minus 5. Now if I ask you to find where these two lines intersect, here's how you do it with a grapher. Now remember, without a grapher, how do you find where two linear equations intersect? Do you remember? We use linear combination or substitution. But today we're learning how to use a graphing calculator. So you've typed both of these into your calculator, okay? So now that you've done that, and by the way, I hope that you know where the X button is. The X button is this button right here. I guess I should have said that earlier in the video. We've done this before with quadratics when we were graphing them before. Or no, I'm sorry, absolute value functions. So there's the X button right there. So hopefully you've typed these two things in correctly. All right. Now, after you've done that, I want you to hit the graph button. All right. Push graph, which is right here. Push the graph button, and the two lines will slowly appear. Alright? Now what you want to find is where this intersection point is, and you can always try to estimate by looking at the coordinate plane, but that's not very accurate, okay? So we're going to learn a way to do it here with the calculator. Now, now that you've got this graph in front of you, here's the next thing I want you to push. I want you to push, see where it says in yellow letters right here. It says CALC. That's abbreviation for calculate. So I want you to hit second for yellow and then trace for calculate. Second trace. And when you do, every calculator is a little different. For mine, this pops up. And it's asking me, what do I want to calculate? Well, obviously, I want to calculate where the two lines are what? Intersecting right here. Intersect number 5. So you can push the number 5, or you can scroll down until you get to number 5 and then push enter. Okay? When you do that, this will pop up on your screen. It's going to say first curve. Now what that means is sometimes on a graphing calculator you'll have 2 or 3 or 4 lines or parabolas or quartic functions or whatever graphed. So the grapher is asking you first curve, or in other words, what is the first line you're talking about? In other words, we have 2 lines intersecting, right? Well, what if your graph had 3 or 4 lines? The calculator has to know what 2 lines you're talking about. Well, obviously in this graph there's only 2 lines, so it really doesn't matter. But understand, on a graph that might have a line here and a line here and a line here like this, 3 different lines, and you're trying to find intersection places. When it says first curve, you want to make sure this black little blinking dot right here is on one of the lines that makes the intersection point. And of course, one of the lines that makes this intersection point right here is this line here. So make sure your point is on it, okay? And then hit enter. Now when you hit enter, you should find this next. It should say second curve. Now what it's asking you now is, okay, what's the other graph that forms the intersection point? Well, obviously it's this line right here. And because there's only 2 lines on this graph, then the black little flashing dot should have jumped to the other line automatically. If it didn't, you'll want to move it over to there and then hit enter. Now when you hit enter, it then says guess with a question mark. In other words, are you ready to find out the approximate intersection point right here? So you hit enter. When it says guess, you hit enter. And when you do that, this will pop up right here. There we go. Now it tells us the intersection point of these 2 lines is 1.4 and negative 2.2. So the answer is not going to be whole numbers this time, but the grapher helps us to get very accurate and very close to where we want to be. Okay, so there's the intersection point. So you can write the intersection point like this: 1.4 comma negative 2.2, and there's your intersection point. Guys, I hope that you're taking notes on this and keeping this so you know how to use your calculators later on in college or whenever you need to, okay? But that is how you would find the intersection point of 2 lines by using your graphing calculator. Alright, I hope this video has been helpful to you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email.